Did. I wrote this script almost 11 years ago. And I was actually in Blockbuster with my mom in Calumet City, Illinois. And I was like, we like spent forever in Blockbuster. And we were taking a really long time, like usual. And I was like, I kind of want to see this movie about this entertainment reporter who has to like do this expose on all her celebrity friends. And then she was like, oh, that sounds pretty good. And she was like, well, what's the name of it? And I was like, Hollywood. And she was like, and I said, oh, no, 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 it's called Hollywood Chaos. And she said, oh, that's good, let's get it. And I was like, what do you mean, let's get it? No, I just made that up. I was just saying that's the kind of movie I would like to see. She said, you just made that up in the store right now? And I said, yeah. She said, oh my gosh, honey, you need to go write that. I was write it. What are you talking about? Because I went to school for engineering, so that was not even, an option for my brain at that point. But I did. I literally got a book that weekend. How to Write a Book in 21 Days. Vicky King, I think, wrote it. And then that weekend and that next 21 days, wrote the script. And then I was like, I'm going to move to LA to get this movie made 11 years ago. and then I drove out here, and here we are 11 years later with the finished movie, though. It was it was hard to do that at times, and even especially in the post-production process, because it's in the post-production process is really where your movie is made, in the editing. So there's some scenes where like our editor might be like, we don't need to, we should take this, we're not going to show this. And I'm like, but why? I'm thinking, I wrote this, like, this scene is brilliant. And he's like, yeah, but it doesn't really move the story forward or whatever. So it was hard at times, but at the end of the day, the whole point of all this is to make a good movie that we can sell. And, so if 3 or 4 people on my team are saying they don't feel like this part is moving the story forward, then I'm going to go with what my team is saying, because I hired my team to make the best movie possible. So it's hard sometimes, but at the end of the day, it's not. And I'm also kind of tough on myself. There will be scenes where I'm watching and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so slow. There's like a scene in the movie and I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have definitely layered it with more. And they're like, you wrote the script. I'm like, I know, but that's another thing I learned too. I didn't realize how important your script is. It literally is the blueprint. And like after you have your script, I mean, it isn't going to get any better necessarily. Sometimes you think like, oh, you just need to have a decent script, and then once the actors do it and the directors do it and the music, and it's all going to just be like brilliant. That's not really the case. Your script needs to be solid, so that there's a couple of scenes and there's little tricks and stuff you can do that we did do to make something kind of pop or move a little bit quicker, with the story. But the script is so important to make sure that you really hone it. And I knew that early on. I know, like, I worked with I hired a consultant after I hired a consultant to help me to like the original script was like 120 pages, the one I wrote 11 years ago. But in that 11 years, it had been rewritten to be like up to date with 11 years, things have changed so much. So I rewrote it to kind of get it up to speed with today. But after that point, I hired a consultant to help me to get the script from 120 pages down to 90 pages, because that is hard. My producing partner said it can't be more than 90 pages if we're going to shoot this in 2 weeks. So that part of it was hard. It was hard, taking out, I didn't know like what scenes we should take out or whatever. So working with the consultant, that was good to help me to see like what the main bulks of the story were and things that weren't that significant, or things we could, take this and put it here also. That was useful. But being the writer and producer, it's hard. But I've been told it wasn't that bad working with me. One of my producing partners, Tangi, she was like, you're actually not that bad, because she's worked with some writer producers who are like, obsessive. You can't change a word. They're on set, when they want the actor to redo the scene. So that's not me. I think a lot of the actors, they brought a lot of life to it, and even some of the dialogue, they spiced it up a bit. Yeah, no, like the director, when I first brought him on, I asked him what are some things with the story that he would make better, or what things did he see that weren't, on point, and he gave me his honest feedback on that. And then I tried to fix those things before we actually went into production, so that he felt comfortable with the story. And then once we were on set, because we're moving at it's such a crazy time pace. I mean, like, we were shooting probably like 10 pages a day. I mean, we were shooting a lot at one time, and we were shooting it it wasn't just one location. Some days we had 2 locations, So there aren't a lot of time for notes and stuff. Once we go, we're going. You know what I mean? It's kind of like it is what it is. But he gave me notes earlier on. And so we were able to kind of work out those in advance. And then, we did a lot of, I told him, another reason why I hired Abel, the director, was because I told him I'm probably going to be a little bit more hands-on than most producers would be. Because like I said, if I knew how to direct, I probably would have directed it, but I didn't. So I wanted to make sure I watched, at least a film for the first time, see it direct before my eyes before I decided to launch out into that. And there would be times when I would see a scene and I would be like, it's not quite going how I envisioned it in my brain. And what I envisioned in my brain, I thought was a little bit stronger than what they just, shot. So I pull the director to the side and say, hey, could we try it like this? And he would, and we tried like that. And, so we had a good working relationship. No, for the first time around, for me, it would not have been good to direct this first time around because I didn't go to film school. So I had this was so much of a learning process for me. So even just like basic things and terminology, they'd be like a dirty on so I'm like, a dirty? What's a dirty? So like certain things, they're like, oh, it's when the actor is here. And, so certain things I just have no clue. And so I think I think in order to direct something, you should have a clue so that you respect the craft, so that the, team around you, doesn't think you just like are just trying to just do something that you have no clue about. So I think that's important, especially being a woman, because working on set as a producer even is a challenge when working with an all-male crew, of people. I mean, we had some women, like a wardrobe and hair and makeup, but pretty much everybody else was a man. And so nothing against men, but, just the dynamics of, working as the boss to a lot of guys can be challenging. And there may be times when, someone will say to me, well, the director said this, this is what we're going to do. I'm like, okay, but like I hired the director and, this is and the director and I have already agreed on this. So like, it's not like I'm superseding him. We're already in agreement. So you need to get on board. So there were times like that where we had, little minor things. And I felt like if I were a man, I felt like it would be a little bit different. I could be wrong because I've not walked in a man's shoes. I've not been on set as a man. But from, in my opinion. So I think that if you're going to direct as a woman, you do need to, make sure you understand the terminology so that you can, be at the same level working with your, your coworkers or, your team, so that they have a certain level of respect for you. Otherwise, not that you can't do it, but just be a little bit more challenging. So for me, I definitely would want to make sure. So that's why I'm in classes now, to learn that terminology.